This temple we often call the Sacramento Betsuing has been a part of the Sacramento community now for 114 years. It was founded in 1899, and this is the third location that it's moved to. For many years it was on 5th and 4th and O Street, but due to the urban renewal programs of redevelopment in the 50s, it was moved to this location in 1959. So the building itself here has only been here since 1959, 1960. But the Sangha has been here. The community, the Buddhist community has been here, established in 1899. It came with the first generation of Japanese immigrants. Once they realized that they were going to be here for a while, they petitioned our mother temple in Kyoto to send priests over. And so they came in the mid-1890s and then went back and said, yes, we should try to establish temples here in America. The first one was in San Francisco in 1898, and so this is actually the second oldest temple in the mainland United States. Hawaii has older ones, but in the mainland United States, this is the second oldest group of, or Sangha. So that's how our community first was established here in Sacramento. I don't believe there was much financial support. Those early pioneers, they were courageous. They came here overcoming obstacles of language and prejudice and new cultures, and with very little did what they could to establish, in a way, a safe haven, because with the discrimination and without the recourse to civil rights, they had to have a place where they were safe. And the segregated communities became, in a way, where they felt they could gather and feel comfortable and familiar. And so in the beginning, I think it was a more of a cultural center for the Japanese immigrants. But with the second, third, fourth generation, fifth generation, and now with the growing non-Japanese membership, it's very, very nice to see that the Dharma is taking root in a whole fresh, new way. Well, our sect of Buddhism is called Jodo Shinshu, and it's the largest sect of Buddhism in Japan. Although people are very familiar with Zen, Jodo Shinshu is the largest sect. So when the immigrants came, they first brought this particular style of Buddhism with them. And so wherever you have any significant population of Japanese, you're going to most likely find a Jodo Shinshu temple. And then some of the other Japanese sects of Buddhism, like Nichiren or Koyasan or the Soto Zen temples, they followed. And probably the most well-known would be Suzuki Roshi's Soto Zen temple, Sokoji in San Francisco, from which the Zen Center eventually branched off and became independent. Oh gosh, no. I would probably venture a guess to say maybe at least uh, maybe a dozen to 20 gatherings, sanghas, uh, because now we have a growing Southeast Asian population, and we have in West Sac Bhante Sila Vimala's group, the American Buddhist Seminary, and we work together with them and with the Kim Kwan Temple to try to establish a little more dialogue. Yeah.
And what's the origin of Kim Kwan?
Kim Kwan is a Vietnamese temple. It's on Alta Arden. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really feel that I think it's been at least 25 years now that I've been invited to participate with the Sacramento Buddhist Meditation Group. And over those years, I know I have always encouraged the SBMG to remain independent and non-sectarian, because the future of Buddhism in America, I feel, is not in sectarian Buddhism. I think it's important that we create an American Buddhism. And it's going to be groups like the SBMG that, as I often have said, you are providing the Dharma buffet. You have many interesting teachers coming in to share the Dharma, each with their own flavors, but essentially I feel the same important message. And people are drawn to Buddhism for many, many different reasons. But one of the things I've heard often from people who have come to Buddhism from other traditions, when they find their way to the Dharma, they will often say, I feel as if I've been Buddhist all my life but didn't know it. And I think that's as it should be, because it's not about being anything. It's about discovering something that's really meaningful and resonates within you and affirms what you intuitively sense to be true. And if they happen to call that Buddhism, then you're going to say, oh, that must be what I've been all my life. Oh, I feel there's certainly great freedom in Buddhism, but also, freedom requires responsibility and discipline. We can't have freedom without taking responsibility and having discipline. People often confuse freedom with just being able to do whatever you want in whatever way you want it. But if everyone lived with that sense of freedom, what we would be living with is chaos. So what we need is always a sense of discipline and responsibility. Responsibility not in obligation, but in the deepest meaning of the word, that we have nurtured within us the ability to respond to life, to circumstances. And that is responsibility, our true ability to respond to life. And discipline, we have to have discipline in order to be free. If you're a musician, you can't just pick up any instrument and play freely. You have to master the discipline of that instrument. And only in mastering that can then you play truly freely. You're then really free. But it requires us to be disciplined and also have that ability to respond. And I think with passion, I think we have to feel something passionately. To me, passion is a part of compassion. You have to have a sense of passion before you can allow that to grow into compassion. So pursuing your curiosity, allowing yourself to really think about what is it that interests you. That's what I tell our kids here. When they're going off to college, I always tell them, don't worry about if you're going to love what you do. That's too much pressure. Parents want their kids to find something they love, do what you love. But that's so much pressure. If you worry about that, then from the first class you take, you'll be wondering, am I going to love this? We won't know until we're doing it. And so I will often tell our kids, just pursue your curiosity. And if you do this, it will most likely lead you to something you really enjoy. And if you do it with enjoyment, if you do it with passion, you'll probably be pretty good at it. I don't know what will work in this day and age, but looking back on the history of the temples that I'm aware of, it seemed to always begin with some very strong and dedicated personalities. People that were willing to sacrifice and made organizing a Dharma center a priority, wanting to leave this legacy, this Dharma legacy for the generations to come. And so it really has to be beyond just our lifetimes and just for us. How do we get that greater feeling of purpose that we need to do this? We really need to do this. And to find those dedicated people who will make this a priority. Mm-hmm. I was sharing a story about once a high school class of, I think they were seniors in high school, came to visit our temple, and I spoke to them, and most were completely unfamiliar with Buddhism, so I really started with the most essential basic understandings that are the foundation of all of Buddhism. And at the end of that meeting, many of the children in that class, the students, they're really excited. They're to hear that there's a tradition that encourages you not to believe anything, that nothing is taught for believing, and everything is taught for us to test. And it was very empowering, I think, for them. And when they found out that one of their classmates attended our temple, grew up coming here from the time she was very, very young, 5, 6 years old, they were envious. And they told her, oh, you're so lucky to have been raised as a Buddhist and coming to this temple. And she came to visit me here alone and perplexed why her classmates were so excited about Buddhism. And she said she's not excited about it at all. And she said, and her words were, when's it going to kick in for me? When's it going to kick in for me? And I just smiled at her and told her it already has. You were raised within this tradition that allows you to live without fear. You don't fear that you're sinning. You have no fear that you're going to be punished in an afterlife for something you're doing. You're not living to please any beliefs that you are told are really important to never forget. You're instead given the freedom to think for yourself. And you don't come to a Buddhist temple to learn what to think. You come here to learn how to think. And you are. And she still didn't get it, but I think it's that's the difference of being raised within it. You're raised with such freedom, and if you're not given that freedom, how much you appreciate it when you hear that there is a tradition that nurtures freedom to think for yourself, to doubt, to question. Doubting and questioning is not only recommended, it's demanded. If you're on the Dharma path, you have to doubt and you have to question, because absolutely, as I said, nothing is taught for believing. Yeah, Buddhism in America. When I think of just Buddhism anywhere in the world, everywhere that Buddhism has gone, everywhere the Dharma has traveled, it's taken on the flavors of that culture. And as I know I've explained when I've met with our friends at SBMG, when I'm asked questions like, why are there so many different styles of Buddhism? Essentially, we all have to teach the same thing. And yet, everywhere the Dharma has traveled, it has taken on flavors of that culture, and people enjoy it because of that. It's nourished them. And the analogy I usually will use is, if we think of the Dharma as rice, everywhere rice has gone and become a staple part of the diet of a people or a culture, they've given rice a certain unique flavor. And so you have, curry rice and fried rice and sushi and risotto. Everywhere it's gone, it's taken on the cultural flavor, and the people in that culture eat, enjoy, and are nourished by the rice because of that. And the Dharma too, everywhere it's gone, it's taken on cultural flavors. And we're here now in America, and we shouldn't taste like any specific culture. We have to give it an American flavor. And what that flavor is, America is, we have so many great flavors here. And again, that's why I think the SBMG is important, because you have this buffet, and then people begin to experiment, putting together different flavors. Now they call it fusion cuisine with food. But I think this is what we're going to find happening in America. We will create a very unique flavor that people in this country and culture will enjoy. It will nourish them, and they will really find the taste, just something unique to America. Well, I have felt for years now that the whole world is hungry for the Dharma. Uh, we don't know it always, but we really need it. We need it now, perhaps more than ever, because so much is going on and going wrong. So much is happening, and it's all founded in greed. I look at when we look at the economic downturn, when we look at well, you can give thought to almost any problem in the world, and I think we're finding ourselves then looking at greed. And as we become one world economy, affecting each other even more significantly from a distance, we need a perspective on why we do the things we do, what's important to us and why, who are we, what is the nature of our humanity, our shared humanity. And so in a way I feel as if the world needs the Dharma and is hungry for the Dharma more than ever before. But we can only do what we can. We can't save the world. I wish we could. I think the ecology movement has a very Buddhistic slogan: think globally, act locally. Think globally, act locally. And I think this is very Buddhistic, that we can think of the problems of the world, we can think of the problems that need to be addressed, but we can only do what we can in our sphere of influence, whatever that might be. And just doing our best to affect that sphere is changing the world. And so we have to do what we can. And that, I think, is empowering. I often think of this one example, always comes to mind. My wife and I were at Costco. And I know I shared this with Terry. We were at Costco, and you rarely get out of Costco for under a couple $100, and we had our cart full of things, and there was a man behind me with just 2 items in his hands, and he's scanning all of the checkout counters to see which one is the shortest and which one would probably be the fastest, and noticing his agitation and how he was just with his head on a swivel looking around for the fastest way out. I said to him, you're more than welcome to go in front of us. I mean, we're in no hurry. And he said, no, that's okay. And as we got right up to the counter, and he was still behind me, and I said, hey, really, it's okay. Why don't you just, step up and buy your 2 things, and you can get on with your day. And he said, well, okay, And suddenly his demeanor completely changed, and now he was so happy. And we had conversation. He looked at my cart and said, hey, wow, is that any good? I said, I don't know. It looked pretty good, so I'm going to try it. And we laughed and smiled, and he was very happy to get his things paid for and out the door a little bit early, and left with a smile on his face and thanked us again. I said, no problem. And it's a small thing, but he will go forward and a little happier, and perhaps show patience and kindness to others that he encounters. Oh, I think it's essentially very Buddhistic. It's one of the 6 paramitas is patience. And we who are living in the year 2013, 2014 here in America, we are the busiest people who have ever lived. We are the most well-scheduled, the most well-informed, and the most well-entertained people that have ever lived. And every day we awake to a full schedule of places to be, people to see, things to do. And I think we've become also the most impatient people who have ever lived. We want it now. We want everything, we want it now. We want fast food, we want service fast, we want everything fixed fast, we want our computers to work faster, we want everything fast and convenient. And because of this, we become more and more impatient. And impatience leads to anger and intolerance, and that leads to hatred and war. Nurturing patience is one of the paths to awakening. The 6 paramitas are each a path to enlightenment. And patience is clearly a path we can practice. So. Dharma is often what Buddhism is called. Buddha Dharma often is translated as the teachings of Buddhism. But Dharma, in the greatest meaning of the word, means truth. Absolute, undeniable, universal truth. So every religious tradition, I think, likes to consider that they're teaching the truth. And Buddhism is no different. Dharma is universal truth. But as one of my dear friends and mentors, Socho Gui, who was past bishop of our Jodo Shinshu temples in America, he would say, if Dharma is universal truth, then it should make sense to anyone, any place, any time, any culture, in any language. And if it doesn't, then it's not Dharma. So Dharma is really huge. Dharma is just absolute universal truth. And it's found anywhere and everywhere. And I think to Buddhists, it doesn't matter from where we find truth or from where Dharma comes. We can find it in the Hindu Vedas, in the Islamic Quran, in the Torah of the Jewish tradition, the Christian Bible, or the Buddhist sutras. But we will be the judge of what we sense to be absolute universal truth. You'll know when you encounter truth because it will feel right. When you encounter something that's absolutely undeniably true, it's something you feel in your gut and you just go, yep. I think that the essential and original teachings of the historical Buddha are huge. They are wide. He wasn't teaching this is Buddhist truth. Siddhartha, once enlightened, he was talking about reality. He wasn't saying, now this is, I want you to call this Buddhism, and after I'm gone, don't change a thing, you know, and I want all credit for this, you know, because this is my legacy. No. The historical Shakyamuni Buddha was just teaching reality. And his wish was very simple. His wish for everyone was just wake up, open your eyes, see things as they are. See things as they are, not as you want them to be, but as they are. And this is Dharma. Open your eyes, look around, see reality as it is. And what he taught we continue to teach today. Whether it's taught by Bhante Siloimala or my friend, the Sri Lankan monk in West Sac, or whether it's the Dalai Lama or a Zen Roshi or a Jodo Shinshu minister, has to be the same. And essentially, as you know, I think it's founded on two things. The teaching of impermanence and the teaching of interdependence. Change and oneness. The reality that everything is constantly changing. Nothing can last forever. And yet at the same time, all things are interdependent. Everything is interconnected. There's nothing that happens in a vacuum all by itself. And when we awaken to these two realities, these are universal truths. They're not truths according to Buddhism, and these aren't taught to be believed. That's, something I've had young students coming here doing papers on Buddhism in maybe a world religions class. And I've had some very clever students, when they listen to a presentation, they might respond, well, Buddhism is the teaching of impermanence, you say. Yes, it is. Well, if Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent, is impermanence impermanent? Oh, very clever, huh? And my response would be, I don't know, is it? Because impermanence isn't taught for us to believe. It's taught for us to test. Is it true that nothing can last forever, that everything is changing? And if it is true, then live with that awareness. Live appreciating the moments you're able to live, because they're not forever. Selfishness is really very much at the key to not allowing us to see beyond, see the oneness, see beyond ourselves. So having, if we're always centered on ourselves, and I think this would be a Buddhist way of looking at things. The key to happiness is to be other-centered. The key to unhappiness is to be self-centered. And to our graduating high school seniors, when I talk with them, and when I have visiting students, I tell them this usually near the ending of our session. I'm going to give you a guarantee, and I don't give out many guarantees. But I'm going to give you this guarantee. If you live your life self-centered, if you live your life selfishly, I guarantee, absolutely, you will fail at every love relationship you are in. And they just look at me like, really? I said, absolutely, you will fail. And so that you probably have like a mandala painting, and in the center will be the three poisons: greed, anger, ignorance, which are all just manifestations of selfishness. And in the Four Noble Truths, that we hear often, I think, just completely weighed in a negative fashion. Instead of saying life is suffering, as I always explain, we say life is tough. Life is tough. Life is constant adjustment to change. And why is life tough? The second of the Four Noble Truths. Life is tough because we're selfish. We're craving. We want things for us, and we're selfish. How do we make life not so tough? Don't be selfish. How do we make life not so selfish? Follow the Eightfold Path. So the essential teaching is very simple. It's not rocket science. And trying to move away from selfishness, and that is the center of that mandala. Move away from that, and we move towards a more fulfilling life. We're moving towards reality, breaking down barriers. Yeah, I often, when I give a presentation to people who are completely new to Buddhism, I will first begin with what Buddhism is not. And it is not, according to Webster's dictionary, it is not theology, because theology implies, theos, there would be divinity. It is not religion, according to Webster, because Webster describes religion as a belief system. And as I mentioned earlier, nothing is taught in Buddhism for believing. And so it's not that. And according to Webster, it's also not philosophy. Because Webster defines philosophy as examining reality by chiefly subjective means. And I feel that Buddhism is very objective. So if it's not theology, religion, or philosophy, what is it? And Stephen Batchelor actually has a definition that I'm very drawn to at the moment. He calls Buddhism a culture of awakening. A culture of awakening. I like that. There's all the dimensions of culture within the Buddhist traditions, and everything is geared towards helping us to awaken. Just to awaken. Yeah. I asked my very dear friend Bhante Silavimala of the Sri Lankan Buddhist temple, if we're not religion, theology, or philosophy, what are we? And he said, I don't know. When you figure it out, let me know. And I think that too is a part of trying to label everything. We're always putting labels on things, and students coming here often will ask, what do you Buddhists believe? And they're trying to come to a conclusion about what Buddhism is by asking this question. They want to put a label on us. Oh, you believe this. Ah, I see. But my response for decades has been, Buddhism encourages us to believe absolutely nothing, and totally floors them. They're very unaccustomed to hearing that. What? You believe nothing? How can you have a sense of morality? Where does the sense of sacredness and reverence come from? I would feel as if it really comes from respect for life. First, to just respect life, all life. And but it's also revering the tradition that through the centuries has encouraged us to do this. One minister I know often described Buddhism as being a horizontal tradition. And that's why the temples too are, you walk in and it feels much more horizontal. And other traditions that have a sense of divinity become vertical. They're looking up and out. But Buddhism is much more horizontal tradition. Everything is trying to settle us. So the reverence we feel, I think, are definitely for the tradition itself that has for centuries given us this freedom to think and to grow, and appreciation for some wonderful teachers and teachings that have always encouraged us to think for ourselves. Mm-hmm. There is also part of the paramitas, the path of giving, the dana paramita, unselfish giving. But as my friend Bhante Sila Vimala would often say, Bhante would say, we have to practice. We have to practice giving. We don't just get good at anything right away. Just as we have to practice playing tennis or basketball, or practice doing anything, practice our chanting, practice our meditation, we have to also practice our dana. And if I consider what dana truly is, it's unselfish giving. And I think giving towards sharing the Dharma is giving towards trying to create centers that will encourage people to learn to become true human beings, to learn to think for themselves. One of my wonderful teachers, Dr. Miyuki Sensei, when I asked him, what is the goal of Buddhism? As a young student, 40 years ago, I remember asking him, what is the goal of Buddhism? And his response has always stayed with me. He said, the goal of Buddhism is to become a true human being of no rank. To become a true human being of no rank. And I think that is a truly admirable goal. First, to become a true human being, always connecting with your real humanity, and then to have no rank. That's a lifetime job. And in giving to a center, to help create a center that would be encouraging people to simply become true human beings. I can't think of any better purpose. So I feel very fortunate. I had no idea I was going to enjoy my life sharing the Dharma so very much. Yeah. Sometimes I think about what it is that is my job as one who's able to teach and share the Dharma. And I've had teachers over the years help to guide me in understanding what is my responsibility. Of course, Miyuki Sensei is always trying to become a true human being of no rank. Is right there at the heart of everything. Then a wonderful teacher I had when I was in Kyoto studying, Ryugyo Fujimoto Sensei said, my responsibility as a teacher of Buddhism is to keep the questions alive. Keep the questions alive. Don't come to conclusions. Keep your questions alive, everyone's questions alive. And that always also has stayed with me. And then I think it was Gyomei Kubose Sensei. He said that, and he was a very, very well-known teacher, and his impact continues to this day, so many places. But he looked at himself as an extension cord. That he said, I am just an extension cord. I'm plugged in to the Dharma. People plug in to me, and then Dharma keeps flowing. But Dharma is just coming through me. It's not mine, you know. And extension cord is nothing special. And it's that image I've always enjoyed, and because it keeps us grounded, realizing that we always have to continue to simply be trying to become true human beings of no rank. So I think, it's really important. As I've sometimes shared at SBMG, I feel really Buddhist teachers should never say, "Follow me." If someone says, "Follow me, I know the way," run the other way as quickly as possible. Unless you're in a smoke-filled room and the guy looks like he's a fireman, follow him. But if anyone's claiming to know the way, follow me, I would probably, run the other way quickly as you can. So, that would be, I think, something I feel important to keep in mind. I think the idea of patience, when you mentioned that, Steve, what teaching would be important in this day and age? I really feel patience would be very high on my list. We are such an impatient people. We become more impatient than any people that have ever lived. So maybe we need to nurture patience even more. And that idea of dana, of giving, that too, very important, because it makes us reflect on our attachments, and our selfishness. So those are all good practices. I think that will be probably an interesting challenge for people in America, especially. We are so busy, but we have activity that can become reflective. And it's important for us to make activity reflective. We can drive and meditate. If we stop ourselves from thinking of our schedules and agendas and just think about, being present in the moment and reflecting on how we're feeling about what's going on. The driver in front of me driving erratically, or you're following someone drinking coffee on the cell phone or putting on makeup. How does that make you feel? But if we reflect on this, very interesting how every activity can become meditative. We just have to make it so. So meditation, if asking me to talk about meditation, is absolutely essential. It's all about connecting with who we are, becoming more and more human, and becoming more and more present. But in this day and age we're living in, I think we can practice making almost any activity a meditative activity, just by becoming reflective, just by becoming more present.